All right, let's look at KayoticVerse. We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about RAM prices and why they high. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so RAM prices are high. Simply put, for my people who are familiar, off my timeline. No. All right, RAM prices are high because our memory manufacturers are prioritizing companies that deal with AI, and specifically these companies that I'm talking about are Google, Microsoft. Let me turn this mic towards me. Apologies, you guys. I just gotta make sure my volume is good for y'all too. So companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Nvidia are buying massive amounts of memory to run AI models. Memory manufacturers make more money selling AI servers than they do to, excuse me, or regular PC users. So they are shifting supply away from consumer products. This is obviously going to create less RAM available for normal PCs, higher prices due to scarcity, and a rip-up market that will affect the entire hardware market. And it's going to get to the point of the video where I'm going to break down what these hardware components are and what they do. If you're tech savvy, you probably just leave at that point because we don't need to do hardware entry level to computers. You did this. Not gonna lie to you. You don't want to hear what is a GPU? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that's probably where we're gonna be picking up right now if I don't have anything else to talk about outside of that. So if you don't know what RAM is, random access memory. If you're tech savvy, you could probably leave at this. But RAM is random access memory. It is your computer's short-term memory. Think of RAM like a desk. The bigger the desk, the more things you can do at once. If the desk is too small, things will slow down. So RAM helps your computer run programs, multitask, load games, and apps smoothly. When RAM prices increase, so does every computer. Okay, like every computer will increase because there's a reason why it's increasing in this, and it usually increases due to scarcity of companies buying it up, which is what we're going this moment. If you don't know what GDDR memory is, a special type of RAM that is used only in GPUs, which is a graphics card. GDDR memory is faster than RAM, much more expensive, essential for gaming and AI. When memory prices rise, GDDR gets more expensive and GPUs go up. And the cost to make GPUs also goes up, okay? If you don't know what a GPU, this is a GPU. Coolest one I have, in my opinion. Not the fastest, but the coolest. These are old, by the way. And it's just pink. That's what I said. GPU, graphics processing unit. Here's another one. The reason why you will know that it's a GPU, because you see the interface that you plug up to it, the HDMI, the old school VGA. I'm too young to know what this one is, so that's funny, but yeah. So, yeah, I didn't know what that port was called, but anyway. A GPU is a graphics processing unit. It handles graphics, games, video rendering, AI workloads. Modern GPUs rely heavily on GDDR memory, so memory shortages will directly affect GPU prices. All right, this is why graphic cards don't drop in prices even years later. What is a SSD? Is a solid state drive, is where your operating system, games, files, and apps are stored. All right, if you don't know what a CPU is, this is a GPU. All right, usually on your motherboard, covered in thermal paste on this side only. Do not put thermal. This goes into your actual thermal paste goes right here. All right, peace on that one. So if you don't know what a CPU is, central processing unit is the brain of the computer. It runs instructions, handles logic, controls everything else. CPUs don't use much money. Oh god, CPUs don't use much memory themselves, but they are indirectly affected because when RAM gets more expensive, fewer people will buy them. When fewer people buy them, that means the demand is going to drop and they will get discounted. Motherboards, same thing will happen to them. If RAM gets more expensive, people won't buy computers or computer parts, and these items like hardware, like the motherboards and CPUs, and will get discounted and be on clearance. GPUs, sorta, but not really because of the memory. And if you know about 1080 Ti, the 1080 Ti has like or 11 VRAM. I'm not sure, but it has a lot of VRAM. Yeah, people still use that 1080 Ti. If it wasn't for the lack of updating of drivers, it would still be like a beautiful. Still is though, very powerful. That was my first GPU, especially when I was that was my first GPU. What is a motherboard? Is your main circuit board. Everything plugs into it. Your CPU, your RAM, your GPU, your storage. It doesn't directly get more expensive, but when PC demand drops, motherboards will pile up and it'll get discounted and be on clearance, all right? So, if you don't know what an AI server is and why do they use so much memory, AI servers are massive computers, right? Massive computers. This is a server. But this is an AI server, and they are massive computers used to train AI models, run chatbots, process huge data sets, and AI needs an insane amount of memory to store this data and run those calculations and process language, images, and video. One server can hold 100 times more memory than a gaming PC. If you didn't know that. So that's why they're also, like I said, they're prioritizing those AI servers because they need that RAM. And immediately for one AI server, you can sell a lot of RAM than a guy who just needs 64 or 32 gigabytes of RAM in his gaming desktop. All right, what other resources do AI cost us? We don't talk about how AI is consuming a lot of real world resources. What do I mean? Massive amounts of electricity, huge amounts of water that is used for cooling. We're using rare earth materials and, of course, land and infrastructure. This will contribute to like the high energy costs, environmental strain, and increased hardware scarcity. What we're going through with the RAM, right? And if you're not a non-tech user, this will affect you too because RAM is used in phones, laptops, consoles, tablets, devices. And the way your manufacturer will respond to this is delaying those upgrades, having less memory but for the same price. And the downfall is that they'll increase the price, obviously, which is why this is the price of RAM increase. At the end of the day, RAM prices are being driven by AI demand, memory shortages, corporate prioritization, and of course, when RAM gets more expensive, so do your other hardware components that your desktop needs, they will also get more. Also, phones will have less value, and you'll get delayed upgrades. A lot of companies have delayed their own releases of tech, but because of the prioritization of AI servers and getting the bag, essentially. Probably should be aware of is that the consumer demands no longer are setting the market. Historically, it was gamers, PC builders, and phone buyers. Now, you have a single AI data center that can consume more memory than millions of consumers combined. That demand is predictable, contract based, and reoccurring. Consumers cannot predict the consumers. That would be if predicting a computer consumer's behavior is going to be volatile, meaning we don't know, unpredictable. AI buyers are not, and it's reoccurring. And they already know that the demand could only probably get bigger, right? Memory companies usually plan years ahead. So I think this will be interesting to see what's going to happen in really less than 5 years, because will that demand still be the same now? Will it lessen? We don't know. I'm just interested in seeing how it's going. But so another thing you should be aware of is that if they prioritize these companies, we're gonna have these products that are going to be put in a category called consumer grade, which means a secondary market is being created. So what you'll have is DDR4, DDR5 getting what's left over, new nodes cutting edge technology going to the AI memory first. Consumer memory often uses older processes. This will lead to slower performance and improvements for consumers, higher prices for good kits, and fewer meaningful generational jumps. In other words, innovation flops towards top down, not bottom up. If you want to know what the memory companies are planning for, memory manufacturers are not betting on the gamers. They don't care about you consumers. And the companies they're more focused on the persistent growth of AI. All right, boom. So, what does that mean? They're going to put in a permanent infrastructure for data centers, enterprise AI, government AI, military, and surveillance AI. Like I said, persistent AI infrastructure growth. Because if I can make sure AI grows consistently, or that in the infrastructure that grows, I'm going to forever have a bag, if that makes sense. And everyone wants to kind of have their own AI and invest to it. I just named off who: military, your surveillance, your government, your enterprise, your data centers. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just want people to be aware of what's going on with the RAM, how that will affect the non-tech users, how that will affect my techies that are trying to upgrade. That's pretty much it. I got this desktop on my lap. I was gonna demonstrate this, but what I realized when I was holding it is because our chips are green, bro. Because our chips are green, dude. You can't even see the background. You can't even see the motherboard. But right here, your SSD, your SATA drives will go here. That is your storage where everything is stored. Let me lean to here. You have your CPU needs a cooling temperature control unit. I've never really seen a bare ass CPU. Your RAM goes on the side over here, on this motherboard at least. If you don't know what RAM looks like, I gotta get in the gym too. You want to balance a desktop on your arm. This is RAM. It'll go in a RAM slot. I'll probably get a close up of this. I just don't want to pull out my 4K camera to demonstrate this. The graphics card is up here. Graphics card is right here. It's sitting on the motherboard. CPU is behind this fan. Your power supply unit is right here. And this is pretty much what a desktop looks like on the inside. If you don't know, now you know. And that is what why a desktop is possible. If you don't like the video, leave a comment. Like, leave a comment. Stay blessed, stay cool, stay chaotic.